Hi everybody, welcome to the session. I'm really thrilled to see you all here. So I'm Joy Foley and I am the founder of Peace Valley Australian Bush Retreat, which is a small off-grid retreat space in the middle of the Karila Forest on the New South Wales-Queensland border. It's a place where I invite people to come in and experience a really close connection to nature, which a lot of people have lost. And it's deliberately very simple using permaculture techniques. It's off-grid and we've got no walls. And it's also and this we found out afterwards, it's actually situated on a woman's sacred site. So I'm working with the local elders around that, and we're dedicating the project now really to supporting women and young people, children. And so that's a little bit about what I'm doing. I'm a New Zealander. I then spent 30 years in Europe, 12 in the UK, living off grid there as well. Then in Germany, my kids went through the school system in Germany. In my ordinary life, before I realized I had to dedicate myself to supporting Mother Earth, I used to be a nurse, and I've worked in lots of fields from palliative care through to nursing the elderly in the community to pediatrics. And yeah, so that's kind of me. And the session today is, I'm part of the Inner Dimension Hub. Michael, who's joined us as well, is a co-member of the Inner Dimension Hub. And part of the reason that we're there is because, well, for me, I see that what we base our economies on is actually the most critical component. And sort of fixing the edges of something that's not working is not going to be enough. We need to build a new foundation. And I believe that that new foundation is around our consciousness and our awareness and how we sit with the earth. So I proposed doing this little session thinking that I'd like to create like an open space, like a sacred, safe open space to talk around the ideas of reciprocity, gifting and relationship. Now, this Peace Valley project that I'm doing, I run on gift economy, and it's quite an interesting experiment. And it's really interesting to see different people's ideas and understanding about what that is. Some people feel gifting, oh, it's free. And other people think, oh, that's wonderful and will support, and they understand about the principles of giving forward and so on. And there's this huge discrepancy in between from the all the ideas around it. But what I find and have found is that the idea of reciprocity is really fundamental key to economies, because money is used as a way of exchange, and exchange that's not embedded in relationship is one of the things that I believe allows that more dysfunctional system to happen. So if we're having a relationship with our grandmother and we're sharing a space, we will honor that. But if we have something in between us and we don't actually know that other person, that allows us to buy clothes in Australia that were built by slavery in Bangladesh. So that's kind of the very broad frame that I sort of base this idea of reciprocity and gifting around. Is I feel that if we can get back to something that's more personal and more relational, that some of the problems of our current economic system might resolve. So what I'm proposing is, I've been working with Sarah Yu and ULab for a number of years, and part of what they do is they have a coaching circle, and that is about bringing an idea or a problem, talking about it with the group, then going into a 3-minute meditation, and then seeing what comes out of that. And I've also been working with the Circle Way. So I've just adopted something for today's session, a very simple thing, where I would like to invite participation from everybody. And I would like to invite each of you to bring a question, an idea or a thought around the theme: reciprocity, gifting, relationship, and money, obviously. And we'll go round in the circle and we'll bring that. And what I'd like to ask is, once you've shared your idea or the question or whatever with the group, perhaps jot it down in the chat so that we can all see it and have it there. Once everybody's shared, I've got a meditation bowl here and I'll sound the bowl, and we'll just sit in silence for 3 minutes, and we'll allow all of those ideas and questions to land in our bodies. So we're going to try and listen to them deeper than just with our ears, you know, or just with our intellect. We're going to try and just let them land and try and listen really deeply to what's behind that idea. What's the deeper message coming from that question? Okay. And then after that, after the 3 minutes, I'll sound the gong again. We'll come back in and we'll go into a dialogue round. And so in that round, we'll kind of do it popcorn style. And whoever comes in with an idea and feels called to share it, will just come in, you know, indicate that you want to speak and share what comes up. Now, it could be that an emotion comes up. It could be that a picture comes up. It could be words or ideas. It doesn't matter. Anything that comes up in those few moments of contemplation could be very relevant to a later discussion. So then sharing what comes up in those 3 minutes, and then the next and final round is completely open, and let's talk about what comes up. And this is our session, not my session. So what we co-create here could be beautiful, and it's up to us to see what happens. So how does that sound? And has anyone got any questions? Repeat the question. Okay, well, first, before I repeat the question, I'm just going to put in, this is links to what I'm doing. And so the question is, hold on, I'll just get that. Just get the right place. Please share an idea, question around the theme of money in relation to reciprocity, gifting, and relationship. Hold on. And so if each of us just shares the one thing. Yep, and anybody that doesn't want to share don't have to share. You know, there's no must about this. This is completely up to us. And yeah, and you don't have to be on camera. You can just leave your name. Just replying there to a lady there that's made a comment. Okay, so so again, any more questions about the procedure that I'm proposing? No questions. Okay, so we'll begin the first round, and I invite anyone who wishes to share their idea or their question around the theme of money in relation to reciprocity, gifting, and relationship.
I could go first if you like. Yeah, look,
thanks, John. That'd be wonderful.
I'm part of Narara Eco Village. We spent probably a year looking at voluntary labour and how we'd organise that. One of the big issues that came up was how you value products or services by different people and things like that. So without money as an exchange, personally, how do you value things, and how should the community value it? So there's a very interesting question.
Thank you for that, John. Beautiful. Would you like to just type that into the chat so that we can have reference back? And if somebody else has something that they'd like to add to the conversation, please feel free.
Hi there.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi there. Something that came to mind just when you were talking, like I love the idea of, you know, gifts, like exchange type relationships. But something that did pop into my mind recently is how approaching that without sort of making the other person feel like they have some obligation to you, like if you just help them out with something. And yeah, it was just something that came up recently that I thought might be interesting to explore.
Thank you so much. And if you felt to add that question into the chat line, then we can refer back afterwards. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else? Leona, thank you.
Thanks, Joy, for bringing this to the table. Hi, everyone. I'm curious about reciprocity in the greater kind of common good of shared services, and how in an exchange model, some of those shared services like schools and hospitals and things we really value, you know, free education and so on, get supported. Just curious.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Good question.
I'll type it in.
Thank you. Yes, that'd be great if everybody did.
So what came up for me was the, I suppose there's a certain ephemeral nature to, you know, the gifting and relationships and reciprocity, but there's also increasingly that nature for money. You know, as we dematerialize, and you know, the underpinning value, really, this money, this is not related to true value anymore.
That's a brilliant question. Thank you. They're all wonderful. Michael, did you have your hand up as well?
Yeah, I'm interested in growing polarization in the world, and this idea of separation and making people other. And when we're separated from each other, there's less willingness to have this give and take. You know, we're more protecting my stuff from you. So I'm very interested in what do we do about polarization.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Marila?
And my heart is kind of in, it's a question, but also exploration, you know, about how can the wisdom of our bodies, how can this inform us in us and our economy, especially in the area of reciprocity, gifting and relationship. And I mean it in the way that it's not so much talking about it, but actually finding a ways of being together that allows the deeper embodiment, and connecting with that this body is a community of cells that already are in deep relationship, that is kind of interrelationship and interbeing and connected with the larger universe. So that is, yeah, that kind of playing on that edge is where my heart and passion is. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. And just drop it into the chat. We can save the chat later if people want to explore these questions further. If no one's got a burning desire to go next, I'd just like to bring in the idea of a system that was around a long time ago called the Cooler Ring, which you may have heard about, in the Trobriand Islands in the South Pacific, that's up behind Papua New Guinea, there, north of Papua New Guinea. And they had a system of ceremonial exchange of shell and bead necklaces. And they would circulate these very valuable gifts, but it wasn't about buying and selling, it was about holding relationship. And that was what held the entire community of this quite large archipelago of islands together. And they gift things to each other. And so they were able to hold their community together with this symbolic exchange rather than having to have a monetary, so everything else was gifted, yeah, between the islands. But they had this ceremonial exchange of these things that helped to bond them all together. So yeah, I just want to throw that in as something to add to the thought processes, if you like. Okay, anybody else?
Yes, so Loriana, yes. Yes, sorry, I didn't turn on the camera because I'm working on fabulous Mount Tambourine. So I do work with universal basic income. Therefore, the question of reciprocity, in this case, within the labor market, it's a very pressing one for us. And just the example that you made, how we could take inspiration about how other people and other cultures have gone beyond what we seem to be stuck into, this almost enforced reciprocity, which is also enabled in many ways via money. I was thinking about anthropologist Ferguson, who did this study in Africa, various African tribes, and the concept of the rightful share. So that people are entitled to a share of whatever that specific tribe has, but it's not based on a concept of gift or labor, like I do something for you in return of something else. It's based on a concept of existence. So it's almost more profound, based on a recognition of inherent human value, just based on presence and existence. That's, yeah, just this idea that I wanted to throw in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doriana. That's beautiful. Thanks. And just drop it in the chat line as well, if you wouldn't mind. Is anybody else wanting to share? We'll just wait another minute. And if not, we'll go into silence and just okay. So just before we go into silence, have a quick look at all of the little comments in the chat and just see how they are landing in your body, not just in your mind. And I'll just sound the gong, the bowl, and we'll have 3 minutes of silence. So just get yourselves comfortable first. Maybe place your feet on the floor, nice and flat, and straighten your back. Take a couple of breaths, slow breaths in, and just let go now, because we're letting go to let the wisdom of our body bring a gift, possibly. So just letting go is wonderful. And now we'll start with the sound of the gong, and then I'll sound the gong again in 3 minutes and we'll come back for the next session. Thank you, everybody. So if you'd like to just gently come back into the Zoom space, take a deep breath or two and stretch a little if you feel the need. So now we're moving into the next round, which is where those that wish to can share if something came up for them in those few moments of contemplation, whether it be ideas, thoughts, feelings, sensations, images, even if it seems quite irrelevant or quite unusual, because they will, and for the ULAB process, I've done this so often, whatever comes up and is shared has relevance, even if the person that's getting the image or the feeling doesn't understand it. It actually has relevance for the conversation. So I invite anybody who feels inclined to begin. Yep, John, thank you.
Okay, look, the thing that propped up in my mind was a local currency. I'm aware of half a dozen around the world. I've visited communities that have them. The notable one was in Golden Bay in New Zealand. But hands it was called. How about no dollar system? Anyway, with it seemed to solve one of the problems there that was mentioned about the ephemeral value of things. Dr. Shan Turnbull has come up with a notion of turning the sunlight into an energy dollar, so a kilowatt hour dollar. So whatever your local radiation is, you can capture that and use that as a currency, which is a bit like that Shell's idea. But anyway, it's a way of tethering a value, an absolute value, to a monetary exchange value. It has no wealth. It only has an exchange.
Beautiful, thank you. Anybody else?
So what came up for me was money is the root of all evil. It's kept coming up, and I kept on going back to John's question about, you know, how does money come into this? And then, John, you just talked about exactly what I was kind of going to talk about. So there you go. We're resonating.
Thanks, Heidi. That's beautiful. And don't be shy. Just feel free to share, you know. Leona.
What came up for me was from Loriana's reference to a universal basic income, which I only have a vague sense of, you know, a very naive sense of, but that sense of being in receipt or being gifted support, as it were, just through existing as part of a group of peoples, felt so deeply valuing. It felt so heartfelt, and I wondered what it would be like to live in receipt of that recognition, and how that would make a difference to people's lives and what they do and choose to do, and even in terms of mental health and not being stressed by, you know, poverty and this constant you're not up to scratch kind of thing that money can place on people. Yeah, it makes me want to quickly jump off, go down the UBI rabbit hole, but I'll wait till the end.
Beautiful.
So strong, the sense of, wow, what would that be like to live knowing society is saying you don't have to earn this, you get it by being a member of our people. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
I'll share what just came up for me. It's just something about if we didn't have sort of financial obligations and everyone was more able to have the time free to do what they love, and that space, that these kind of exchanges would probably just flow more easily. Yeah, just thoughts around that sort of came up.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Loriana.
No. Thank you. Yeah, the thought that comes up, and it's not just during this contemplation and meditation, but it's a recurring frame, deeper frame. As you were talking about the foundation, we need to change the foundation of our society and the values. And it's really all about swapping this frame. Now we have reciprocity is asked first, while the thing that comes back in my mind should be a frame that is giving precedes reciprocity, because it's through the act of giving without expecting anything in return, then you can trigger a cascade. You're engendering very different human behavior. So it sounds so simple, but it's one of the foundations, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I can see nods. Everybody loves that. So yeah, Michael, sorry.
What came up also for me had to do with what Loriana was saying before about the intrinsic value of each one of us just because we are. And like when I had my eyes closed for that time of meditation, of silence, it was kind of this relief and this relief in just this, what was there, this being or body or everything, really, this presence. And I just have this feeling that to put value in that will bring us back to our humanity.
Thank you. Thank you. Gareth?
I was just very conscious of my heartbeat. I could sort of really feel it and became very conscious of my heartbeat. And when I was thinking about whether there's a relationship between gifting and the time you've been gifted.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for that.
I join here with this heartbeat. You know, that when I hear this kind of sense how it is our heart that gifts, every cell in the body is nourished and is breathing because of our heartbeat. And I just wanted to do something unusual as a dancer and gymnast. I just want to dare. And I just want you to feel in your body. I'll do something very simple and just feel how it feels in your body. You know, like I will just move, do the hand move, and just to see it. Right. And I will connect with my hand with the flesh and the bones and the cells that hum, that kind of buzzing hum of life, fed by lungs, sky, and heart, earth, And I move from that place, letting cells inform my movement, and see if you see any difference. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add that if you experience what I experience in my body, that this connection allows movement become a dance. It allows beauty to enter and meaning.
So does anybody have anything else directly from the meditation they want to share, or shall we go into discussion already? Just wait a little moment. Is somebody else waiting, feeling nervous? Now's your time. It's all good. Okay, so just before we move on, what came up for me was just very simply to do with diversity, and it's like the diversity in nature and all of the different trees with their different leaves and different shapes and different beingnesses, and that question about exchange and economy is going to have different answers for different ecosystems, for different communities. And they're all going to be responding to the community where they're grown. And that's what came up for me in that 3 minutes. It's about importance of place and diversity. And it needs to be appropriate for that. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's now just see how that's all resonated with you all. Let's just open it for a popcorn discussion around that. We can let our heads come in now and play. Well, yep, Michael.
Yeah. For some reason, this memory of something in a movie I once saw comes up. It was a movie about St. Francis of Assisi. It was a very kind of emotional, kind of soppy movie in a way. But I just remember one scene where they were building this church out in the middle of just in the middle of nowhere. And there was someone came along who had disability, and they got him to help in building. And, he could just lift one rock very, very slowly and, add it onto the wall. And it took him ages to do it. But the person who was playing St. Francis, just was with him and loving him while he was doing it. So it's sort of like in our world, in our economy, that's incredible inefficiency. This person isn't pulling their weight. They're not fulfilling this idea of more and more productivity and all that sort of stuff. But this person, what they could do was valued, really, really valued, rather than thought, oh, that's you're not doing anything, Yeah.
I guess this is our problem with our economic system, isn't it? That everything's driven by shareholder profit, and so they want maximum productivity and growth and all this rubbish, and really it then devalues a lot of even human labor. I mean, they basically get put in a trash heap at the age of 50 if they consider you not productive. So I think it shows up the fallacy and a lot of the problems inside our economic system. Michael?
For me, I love that what you did, Mary La, with the movement, like movement directed from our brain. The difference was quite amazing because it was more sort of distorted and jagged, and the movement that came from the cells, that came from the community that is our body, was a really harmonious thing. So for me, that actually speaks to coming together as community and working out together as a group what's best for our group, and having the community, that energy of community be the thing that directs, rather than the, you know, there's the person at the top that says, oh, you should do it like this, you know, like our heads, you know, you should do it like this. Oh, but actually getting that circle happening and really listening into that. So that actually what you did, that little thing really spoke to that for me. So thank you for that. And I think that's very relevant in this discussion as well, and to what I felt in the 3 minutes of the diversity, and that every system, every ecosystem is going to have its own special, unique process that's related to the other systems and integrated with, but it's unique to that place. So that sits really nicely with me. Does anybody else have anything to say or different?
Yeah, I would just like to build a moment on that, on this, well, through the body, you know, and this interconnectivity and diversity, and how even thinking about systems as the body, you know, and every little part is essential, whether you pay attention to that or not, and bringing it up to the bigger picture of the society where we live. And, you know, this concept of reciprocity and, you know, the productivity, profitability, and so on. It's also attached to a very, very narrow conception of reciprocity, you know, which recognizes, instead of having the whole recognition, so that we are interconnected and so on, so that every little part counts, what we recognize as a reciprocity act in this society is only when we enter paid labor. And, you know, there are so many acts of reciprocity within society that are not recognized as such, as contribution, or as being integral to the working of our society. Thank you.
Thank you, absolutely. You know, I'll butt in there as well and add to that. If it wasn't for all of the unpaid and work done from love, our economy couldn't survive. You know, full stop. That monetary system would not be surviving if the mothers weren't raising the children and caring for the elderly, and the trees weren't breathing the oxygen, and the soil wasn't growing the food. You know, it's just, it just is. So that is the foundation of all, is this gift inherent in life, the gift of life. So how does one bring that? You know, Ubuntu is a lovely thing that I could chuck in. I am because we are. I am because all of life exists. Without all of life, I couldn't be. So that adds value to every single part of life. Comes back to the body, comes to what you were saying, Loriana. But I don't want to dominate, so please dive in, everybody.
I join here with your Ubuntu, with that tree, and this obvious and so amazing ecology of love, or you could call it economy of love. The trees breathe our breath, literally trees breathing in our breath, and we are breathing the breath of the trees. And on top of it, if we wanted proof for it, if I could open my chest, you will see trees, like literally lungs that are trees, kind of rooted in our bodies. And that amazing, effortless, flowing reciprocity that has its own economy, and on top of it, love and beauty and generosity. I feel inspired, like in not every group in economy I would share this kind of thing. So thank you for receiving that kind of different, maybe from left field knowings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. So Mama Visalela is an elder from Namibia that I know, and she talks about in these days where there's such urgency and so much that needs to be doing, we really need to slow down and listen. You know, I don't think she's the only elder that says that. But this ability to have a space like this is a gift. Anybody else like to add? Gareth, you've unmuted at some point. Do you want to have a word?
So the thing that came up for me when talking before was the boundaries between communities, particularly as someone who's still living in a place like Melbourne, is where does community begin and end rather than overlap and layer? What does that mean for gifting and reciprocity? I'm not sure I have an answer.
And another thing that might be relevant to that is not an answer, but it's an example. Diana Beresford Kruger, who talks about trees and interconnectedness, and she talks about how because of the loss of the coastal forests, the kelp beds aren't being fed what they need, and the kelp beds are the nursery for the small fishes in the sea. And so the forests on the land are part of the community of the sea. You know, so the salmon spawn at the top of the rivers, you know, they've spent all their lives in the sea gathering all of the energy in the sea, and they bring it back and they feed the bears and they feed all the creatures at the top of the river. So where does that system begin and end? You know, that's totally interconnected. Absolutely, absolutely. How are we doing for time, just by the way, Gareth? I can't remember. Have we got a few more minutes? Sorry, mute.
We have about 12 more minutes.
Okay. So, yeah, any more comments around this? And then maybe we'll do 3 or 4 more minutes and then perhaps have a closing round and just let everybody share what they've gained from it. But just have another couple of minutes of sharing, if anybody would like to. What's come up?
Could someone speak to the prioritization of services? Someone mentioned hospitals and schools. I can see a problem with aged care homes that have been taken over by, you know, these private enterprises and try to squeeze every last dollar out of them. Maybe if they could be cooperative run or something or other. Schools, I don't know, they're state run, and hospitals. Can anyone see any other solutions there? To have more priority put on the essential services, basically.
Marilla?
I would just say that from where I sit, if we could learn to truly live in our bodies and value the incredible miracle that physical body is, we could not simply allow. We would have to come out with creative ideas to look and nurture and nourish our bodies in the way that makes sense, that creates beauty, that has something that is fed by the wisdom that knows that this body is not just 65 years old, it's 1 billion years old. It started and it knows something that our minds only separated from nature cannot not know yet. So it's indirect, but I want to be part of inspiring that kind of knowing that comes from deeper place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for me, that's also interesting because in the monetarization of all of the things that community used to serve is I see as part of the problem. You know, the putting children into schools, putting old people into nursing homes, that's actually been a simultaneous process of the breakdown of community support. So, you know, there's this thing like it takes a village to raise a child. It's actually true. And what's happened is we've broken the villages. We've put the kids off in schools and taken the old people away, whereas the kids would have been supervised by the old people and their wisdom would have been shared with the children, and the children would have learned in a much more holistic way. So there's a whole lot of things that have happened with the monetarization of our society that's actually led to the breakdown of community. It's like what's first, the chicken or the egg, but they've gone together. You know, that's in my opinion. There's no, you can't separate it. And if we're embedded in place in community, the last thing we're going to want is for our children to go off to some school that's going to turn them into a robot to work in a factory or to work for the bank to get to pay interest on their whatever, to pay the big banks or those 12 rich men. We're going to want our kids to be healthy in place, embedded in this bigger family in place, and the old people honored and bringing their wisdom. So for me, this is my personal thing, is like, it's an old story. If we can bring that old story back in a form that includes the story we're currently in, the best of it. I don't know how. So this is really a session around questions and ideas. And I'm just hoping that what happens from this session that you take with you in your hearts. And we don't know whether the seed from this might be today or tomorrow or next year or in 10 years' time, but I'm hoping that it will plant seeds for you and us, and that something may grow, and who knows what, because I totally believe in magic, and I believe in magic in the group. So let's move into farewells and final comments, and just perhaps whoever feels called. I won't just call out names and go around, that feels too impersonal to me. Just as you feel you'd like to. We've got just a few minutes to do that.
I'll go first because I have to rush off to something else, and I need to walk out the door to get there. So I'd just like to thank everyone and Joy for opening this space and holding this conversation. And I'm really getting that last comment you made about the best of the past and the best of the now for the future. Holds for me a lot of hope, because not everything about our current system, is a problem. I'm really glad for some of the medical systems we've got. There's aspects of education that my family in other cultural systems and women would not access, that living in this kind of world that I've grown up in has given me access to. So yeah, just really wanting to say, how do we take the richness of what we've got and the growing acceptance of diversity and inclusion into community so it's enriched and doesn't tighten back down to us and them, which, Michael briefly referred to, which is what's happening in the world at the moment, this polarization, which is a deep concern to me too. So I have to rush, but I want to just say that last piece and thank everyone.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Beautiful.
Thank you for opening the space.
My pleasure. Totally.
Sorry, go, Michael.
Yeah. For me, we're like a little cell in the body of the world, and I'm sure there's the more cells like us that can be, the more the body will heal. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That's very beautiful.
I just want to say a quick hello. This is a quick goodbye to everyone, and it was great to have this session. And thanks, Joy, for facilitating it and setting up the structure. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your contribution. Very, very valuable. Thank you. And I'd love to visit your village at some point.
Ditto.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone who has taken part and shared with a mind, but with a heart as well. And thank you very much, Joy, for facilitating this different format. And in terms of solution, like I was very inspired by this contemplation minutes, 3 minutes that you've integrated, because I'm thinking, like participatory democracy, like group decision making, and how useful it would be to have, like, to introduce, like times within the conversation when people can just let it sit in and start to act rather than react. So thank you very much. That was been a great inspiration, I think. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Loriana. For that, you need to thank actually Otto Sharma from MIT in America and the Pre-Sensing Institute and Theory U. So that's where that inspiration came from in this process. So if you haven't heard of them yet, do have a look, because their processes and tools are very interesting. I love them.
I will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just running off that, I use Theory U myself. I love Theory U. And thank you very much, Joy, for using it, because it's quite a quick process, but it always creates a crack. And yes, the contemplation's a very important part of it, and mindfulness practice. Just sitting in stillness for even one minute can create so much movement and creativity. So thank you very much, Joy. I really, really, really enjoyed it.
Great. That's wonderful. And thank you so much. Love your contribution as well. Everybody, it's just been beautiful.
So I'll just add my thanks as well. So I know that, I've been in Theory U presses before and run them, but this was artfully done, and you weave together all the different narratives wonderfully. So thank you. That was a really great process.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, for facilitating. I'm really glad I joined this session. For some reason, I always feel like I'm in the right place when everyone kind of looks a bit familiar, even though I've never met them before, because Joy, you just look familiar. I don't know why. And John, I live in Wamberal, so maybe I've seen you. I've been to the Eco Village a while ago, so maybe I've seen you. And Michael, I don't know, I've got a bit of a rum dust vibe when I saw you, but yeah, everyone's contribution has been really inspiring, and definitely planted some seeds. So thank you.
Awesome. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And I add my gratitude too to you, Joy, and everyone. And I just can't help myself to, is it Hidi? How do I pronounce your name?
Hidi.
Hidi. When you talked about the crack, and it put me, I think it was you, Joy, speaking about this Japanese art. Was it inspired with the gold when it's broken?
What is it, Kitsungu or something?
Yeah. Was it you that mentioned it on your...
I didn't I didn't mention it today, but I that's really fun that you bring it up, because I'm going to share this little story. I've got a little stone that I found on a path when I first came to Australia, and in the stone it's got crystals embedded, and one of the crystals is a heart, and it's got a little broken piece. And my daughter is a jeweler over in the UK. So when she visits, I'm going to get her to mend the heart of the stone, symbolically mending the heart of the earth. So I just thought, that I should share that.
Yeah. I knew something was calling me somewhere I didn't know. So you answered that. Thank you.
There we are. Okay. So it looks like we've just run out of time. Does anybody else want to add a quick finishing comment? Robin, hi, nice to see you, that you made it.
Sorry, I've been lurking in the background here. Yeah, I think you mentioned at the start about the necessity for changing consciousness, and that's a huge belief that I have, and I'm really excited about the opportunities, you know, the emerging recognition that that's what we need to do, and the fact that it's about moving more towards what we instinctively like enjoy doing. And I think that's the great opportunity for a universal basic income and variations of it. So I think this work is so important, and thank you so much for a great presentation.
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you very much. And I'm just seeing in the chat that Stephen, who was here with us, has only been able to listen, and he's just saying his thanks. And is there anybody else that we're missing? I've lost track now. If not, then perhaps shall we finish with the sound of a gong and let that be our closing? Thank you very much, everybody. It's been wonderful. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy the rest of the conference. And we'll just let this beautiful vibration set the tone.